You're listening to The Tales We Tell, a podcast about spooky stories, unsolved mysteries, and local lore. I'm your host, Hannah Parch.
And I'm Katy.
Woohoo! We did it!
Thanks, Critter.
Good job!
No interruptions.
Yeah, we have Critter's second episode today. He's quickly becoming my favorite co-host, no offense.
He probably does a better job than me.
I mean, he is very opinionated. And
he gets a little frustrated sometimes, but
I know.
I mean, he's got very insightful commentary.
He does.
We're not begrudging you that. Don't worry.
No. And as promised, hopefully I'm going to bring less things for you to grunt about, because I did do a less sad and frustrating story this time.
Okay.
The wording is a little problematic.
Is this a Dante-friendly episode?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is. There's a little bit of science in here.
All right.
A little bit of medical science. A little bit of accidentally Googling my symptoms, which I haven't been doing. And then they coincidentally matched up with this.
Well, I've definitely Googled a lot of his symptoms.
This is true.
Fans of Critter. We survived his first illness.
Yay!
He had a fever over the weekend, and it was heartbreaking and terrifying. But he's feeling much better right now, contrary to how he sounds.
Yeah, and he's looking very cute as always.
It's your nap time, buddy, and you know it.
He just looked very much caught. And for anyone wondering, he's still the cutest little butterball you've ever seen in your whole life. And he's sucking on his fingers and his thumbs and his blanket like a cute little angel. Mm-hmm. Maybe he'll make some cute sounds for us instead of just the goofy sounds he made last time.
Not just grunts all the time. His actual talks, his ooh, his baby coos. Ooh. Sorry.
That's okay.
Sorry. Well, I was talking to our listeners. Sorry for the.
That's fine. The only announcement that I have, besides, I guess I should start announcing whether the episode is Dante friendly. This one is. The only other announcement is that our new stickers came in, which remind me to give you some before we leave. And I made an announcement on Patreon. But if you're a patron, make sure we have your current mailing address, because those are going out this week in the mail. Yeah, and Critter can have one too. He can have both of them, because it's the Crow and the Murder Cabin.
We'll slap one on the car seat.
Yes. Also, I told Jarek we would take it easy on the swearing this episode.
I'm going to do my best. I was already thinking, like, we need to do what we can to make this an easily editable episode since we're getting it out so late. Sorry, Jarek.
For everyone listening, we're recording on Monday, which is usually when Jarek is editing. But we should just release the unedited version to patrons only as their early one.
Seems more of a punishment than a reward, because sometimes the tangents and nonsense that we go on without edits.
Okay, well, if they're not bad, we should just release an unedited one, and then they can hear all of our little mess ups.
Yeah. And the hold on, I gotta Google this.
And the long pauses. Okay, so we'll go ahead and jump right in. So as promised, I tried to find a fun little cryptid to do.
Yay.
And I also tried to find a wine that was on theme with this, which I thought would be easy because we went to a big wine store yesterday. I did not succeed. Although I did find a cool wine that said send nudes.
Nice.
And I almost got it, but all the wines there were like $20. Okay, so today I'm going to tell you about the Melon Heads. I feel like it will become fairly obvious. This is probably not the best name for these creatures, considering the lore around their origins, but we are going to go with it.
All right, dive right in.
All right, so we're going to go to Kirtland, Ohio, which is located in Lake County, Ohio, which is the northeast corner of the state.
Near all the lakes?
Yeah, I think so. Sure.
I say all the lakes. I actually don't know how many or which one or which lakes.
I don't know. All I know is we drive through Ohio to get to Indiana. And Indiana borders Ohio somewhere.
I don't pay attention to any of those states. If you're from one of those states, I'm sorry. I barely know what they look like. I could probably point them out on a map, but like...
I only know because the town where my grandparents lived was called Union City, and half of it was in Indiana and half was in Ohio. And they lived in the Indiana half.
Okay, Ohio borders Lake Erie, which I thought. And I thought it was just the one, but I couldn't be sure because there's several up there.
Yes. Well, and this cryptid is also found in Michigan and Connecticut. So just think northeast. But I'm talking today specifically about the Ohio ones.
Okay.
So Kirtland, Ohio is pretty small. It has just under 7,000 people as of 2020. It is the home of the first Latter-day Saints temple in 1831. It is mostly densely forested, pretty hilly. It has clay soil that is not great for farming. And, fun fact, it is where cult leader Jeffrey Lundgren convinced his followers to murder a family of 5 in 1989.
Oh, fun. The year I was born.
Which may or may not be a future episode.
I think it should be. Listeners, put your votes in now. Do you want to hear the story?
Yeah, follow up. I'm hoping... So that's a vote for
That's
yes.
a vote for cult story.
Okay, cool.
From Critter.
Okay, so the legend of the Melon Heads. They are small humanoid creatures with, you guessed it, bulbous melon-sized heads.
See, I was just kind of envisioning these like little black humanoid creatures, like shadowy black humanoid creatures that had watermelons that like had been kind of cut in half and put over their heads with eye holes cut out.
That would be a lot cuter than what these are. So they have giant heads and small malformed bodies.
So like Critter with this giant head. Oh my gosh, I have a melon head. Folks, he's in like the 90-something percentile on head size. Like, let's just...
It's so cute, though.
Don't scowl at me.
Some have been described... She was talking to Critter, not me. By the way, I was not scowling. Some have been described as having razor-sharp teeth. They are known to have poor eyesight, live in the woods, and are generally pretty hostile towards people.
Okay, so other than the teeth, I have a melon head.
Well, teeth remain to be seen.
Yeah,
I mean,
they could be razor sharp when they emerge.
I hope for your sake that they are not.
Also, he's not at all hostile to people. He's actually a pretty friendly baby.
He's very cute. Okay, so like I said, this legend is in Michigan and Connecticut also. And they all have different origin stories depending on the location, but they're all fairly similar. So I'm just going to tell you the Ohio version. So in Ohio, these creatures were originally thought to have been orphaned children, human children. And they were all living in an orphanage that was run or supervised by a man named Dr. Crow. Very appropriate for our podcast. Mm-hmm. So Dr. Crow was not the good kind of doctor. He was a bit of a mad scientist. And he used the children for his experiments. And as a result, they developed large, hairless, bulbous heads and malformed bodies. But some versions say, and this is where I think the terminology is a little not great. Some versions
not
say
PC.
Yeah, not PC. Some versions say that the children he used were suffering from hydrocephalus. Are you familiar?
Well, I know what hydro and ceph means, or cephal. Yeah, watery head. That's what I'm getting.
Essentially, yeah. So hydrocephalus is a condition when the brain has too much cerebrospinal fluid. Mm-hmm. In children, it can cause the head to swell pretty quickly because their head isn't fully formed. Mm-hmm. It can also cause seizures, changes in personality or memory, headaches, loss of coordination, slow growth, uncontrolled, or downturned eyes. It's often congenital, so it's often genetic, meaning you're just born with it. But it can occur in adults due to infections, brain tumors, or head trauma. This is where I was accidentally Googling my symptoms because one of the symptoms of acquired hydrocephalus in adults is headaches. And I was like, oh, great. That's probably what I have.
Speaking of, did you get results back today?
I did not. Good and bad reasons, though, because I called the imaging center and they were like, oh, you have to call the doctor that referred you, which is not what I was told, but whatever. So I called my doctor. They were closed for Juneteenth. So I was like, oh, okay, good on you, but also, hi, can I hear my results, please? So today, hydrocephalus can be treated with shunts. This is the science section, by the way. It can be treated with shunts that allow the extra fluid to drain into other body cavities, such as, this is quiz time. I didn't tell you it was going to be a quiz. I just want you.
I'm not a medical scientist, you know.
But you are a scientist.
I am a scientist.
Everyone take a drink. Also, your husband's a pharmacist. Between the two of you, you're like half a doctor.
Technically, he is a doctor.
See, you're like 1 1/4 a doctor. Mm-hmm. Okay, so different places that this extra fluid can drain to. Sorry, different body cavities, such as the peritoneal cavity.
Peritoneal?
Yeah, that one. You know how to say it. You know where it is. Don't give her any hints, Critter.
I should know this.
You should. You know how to say it. Say it again.
Peritoneal.
Peritoneal.
How did you say it? Peritoneal?
Peritoneal? I don't know. I can't reproduce my mispronunciations.
Okay, give it to me.
It's the abdominal cavity.
All right.
All right, this one's easy. Can also be drained into the right atrium.
It's your heart.
That's your heart. Or the pleural cavity.
In your lungs.
Yeah. Or the gallbladder.
That's your gallbladder.
That one was the giveaway.
So mad about peritoneal.
I think it's hilarious she knew how to say it and then couldn't name it.
I actually have taken a lot of, like back in high school, took anatomy classes and other like medical classes. Watch a lot of bones. I've always joked that I'm like, you know what, if I was actually halfway decent at school, or if, you know, maybe I had been diagnosed with ADHD sooner,
you know,
I probably could have done the whole med school doctor thing.
Listen, then
I have no desire to it, so I don't know, but
that would make you guys too powerful of a couple. It's not allowed. I have a friend, 2 friends who are married to each other, and one is a lawyer and one's a doctor, and I'm like, you guys are just too, and they're both like pretty good looking.
Oh yeah,
I'm like, it's too powerful, too much power.
No, their children will be too powerful.
They already have one, like a baby. Yeah, I'm like, oh, that little girl is just set up for success. Okay, here's a fun fact. You ready, Critter? Okay. In 2007, a 44-year-old man was admitted to the hospital for, quote, mild weakness in his left leg. He had been diagnosed with hydrocephalus as a child and had a shunt put in, but it had been removed when he was 14. I don't know why. I guess maybe they thought it's probably drained.
Resolved.
Yeah, who knows. So CT and MRI scans showed, quote, massive enlargement of the lateral ventricles in the skull with an incredibly decreased amount of brain tissue. According to Dr. Lionel Filliot, I think that's how we say that. According to the doctor, quote, the brain was virtually absent. So this man had been living a pretty normal life. He had an IQ that was about 75, so like not the brightest crayon in the box, but he was married, he had 2 kids, and he had a job as a civil servant, and his brain was just like barely there. And to quote Jeff Goldblum, life
finds a way.
Finds a way. Which is sort of what one of the doctors said. I'm paraphrasing. I thought Jeff Goldblum said it better, so we're going with that.
I also want to apologize for anyone who's getting really distracted by Critter. I'm sorry.
It's fine.
And to anyone who actually enjoys his interruptions and noises, you're welcome.
I find them delightful.
I can see how they'd be distracting to people.
I feel like what was more distracting, so I did try to listen to our last episode that he was in, and just to see, I was like, how, honestly, I was more distracted by myself being distracted by him. Like, every time I would pause and be like, oh my gosh, he's so cute. I was like, come on, Hannah, just, like, carry on.
Just power through. All right, well, we'll do that.
We'll maybe do some cute pictures of him or something, again, so everyone can just see how stinking cute he is with his little elephant. Oh, you tired, buddy. I swear, your eyes looking up at us. Okay, so back to our melon heads. See why melon head seems like a bad term now?
Yeah.
They weren't called anything else, so...
I feel like also that's kind of like an old school, like, teasing insult.
Yeah.
Like, calling someone like, you dummy. Like, come on here, melon heads. Like,
yeah.
It was meant more like a playful jest.
Let's go with
kind
that.
of a thing. Than coming, instead of calling someone a freaking idiot. Like, hey, you idiot. It's, come on, melon heads.
Yeah. And maybe melon heads was better than, like... freak or whatever else you could call a child that looks different. All right, so legend says the melonheads maybe were children who had hydrocephalus. Some versions say that Dr. Crow was injecting even more fluid into their brains or skulls, worsening the effects of the hydrocephalus.
You cannot fight fire with fire in this case.
You cannot. There's another version that said he was hired by the government to treat the children. So the government was finding kids with this and sending them to him because he was like, oh, I will heal them. And then he turned around and did the opposite.
Fooled you.
Haha, not great. His experiments not only affected their physical appearance, meaning it created the large heads and the small bodies, but it also essentially stripped them of their humanity so that eventually they acted on instinct alone, which, understandable, again, for...
suppressed the ego and was just the id.
Yeah. Severely abused them, basically.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So eventually, according to the legend, the children rose up against Dr. Crow and murdered him. And then they burned down the orphanage and retreated to the forest. Because of their horrendous experience with Dr. Crow, they had an animalistic hatred for all humans and became known as killers. They would attack humans that they came across and eat them, obviously.
This is actually reminding me of a book series I read called, the first one was called Asylum.
I feel like you told me about these.
I might have. It's been a while since I've read them. BT Dubs, I'm up to 150 books so far since January. So Asylum, I think that's a trilogy. But a boy goes to a college, like, summer prep program or something, and the dormitories are an old asylum that was then converted into a college dorm. Yeah. And, weird things, they're adventuring, yada, yada, yada. But... there's an old asylum with a mystery, and there's... I don't want to give it away in case anyone's intrigued. I want to make it intriguing, but not give away anything.
There's an asylum in the book?
There's an asylum.
Called Asylum?
The book is called Asylum. But I remember it was pretty good. Like, I really liked the first book. The second book was pretty okay. The third book was like, really? Is this necessary? But, it's a good, fun... mystery, adventure, and there's, an asylum with an evil doctor and experiments and such. So, yeah.
Maybe it's related.
Maybe. One of the books takes place in New Orleans.
Ah, not Ohio.
Not Ohio.
I did almost do a New Orleans cryptid. It's on my list.
Hope we'll hear it one day.
Still on my... Yeah, I say that like I don't need like an infinite number of topics. There's some versions of... Oh, sorry. In Michigan, the Michigan version of the legend, the children and Dr. Crow are living in a mansion, and they actually have like an actual mansion that is still there. It's called Felt Mansion, which was built in 1928 as a private residence, and then it was used as a Catholic prep school, then a seminary, and then a prison.
Wow, I wonder how everyone felt about that.
I got that. I was just going to say there's probably a lot of bad energy.
Bad juju.
From all of that.
Or at least it started as like a prep school and then went to a prison and not the other way around.
Yeah. I imagine the kids probably didn't feel...
Probably felt like it was a prison, but sure.
And so in this version, when the children killed Dr. Crow, they cut up his body and hid it in various parts of the mansion. And then they retreated to a system of caverns in the Michigan wilderness, I guess. There's caverns under there. And teenagers who would break into the mansion claim to have seen the doctor's murder played out in the shadows, and also ghosts of the children that used to live there. The Connecticut legend says that the Melon Heads were the result of asylum patients and or prisoners, unclear, that escaped when the asylum/prison burned down in 1960, and that the escaped patients or prisoners, depending on the story, resorted to cannibalism and inbreeding, and that led to various birth defects, including hydrocephalus. So, like, either...
But if they escaped, why did they have to resort to... when they go out into the world where there's, food... That isn't people.
I imagine they, in this alternate universe, they would immediately be identified as an asylum patient/prisoner and captured by the locals. I don't know. What's the origin story of, is it The Hills Have Eyes?
I haven't seen that one.
I'm pretty sure that's the creepy one with the inbred, the hill people.
I think it is.
Whatever their origin story is, copy and paste that here, and that's probably what people in Connecticut say.
All right.
Okay, so now I'm going to draw from a site I found called creepycleveland.net.
Nice.
And it's literally it's like a Reddit for creepy things from Ohio. So, one user who...
Ohioans. They're the creepy things.
Oh.
I'm just kidding, guys. If you're
Nice.
from there, family's from there, whatever. Just joshing.
Aren't you supposed to... Isn't the thing that they say, like if I'm from Ohio and I find out you're from Ohio, I'd be like, O-H!
Mm.
And then you'd say, I-O!
I've never heard that in my life.
I've heard that a few times.
I know literally one person from Ohio. Her name is also Katy.
You should try that next time you see her. Just be like, O-H! And then she'll be like, how do you... I don't...
She'd be like, what are
Maybe
you
that's a
about?
thing that, like, Ohio State kids do. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of. I don't know how I ever knew anyone from Ohio State. Okay. Continuing on, our first user, Quicksilver, writes this. Oh, I had a map. I wonder if I saved it. We'll get to that later. Okay. So, we'll get to it right now, I guess.
Professional operation.
I know. So, according to this person, there's a road, there is a road, not just according to this person. The road is Wisner Road. Mm-hmm. So, according to them, where that road dead ends, there's a house on the right side and at the end of a long driveway and up a hill. I wrote that weird. Up a hill, at the end of a long driveway, there's a house.
Through the woods and over the hills to grandmother's house we go.
Yeah, sure. And this is allegedly where the Melon Heads, quote, live. I thought they lived in the forest. According to this person, they live in this house. There are no trespassing signs everywhere. So, probably private property. And there have been signs of someone living there. So there have been lights on inside the house and cars and trucks parked in the driveway. And the one time that this person dared to get close enough to the house is when there were cars in the driveway and the cars had boxes in them. And this person, I guess, was dared by their friends to go take one of the boxes or look inside one of the boxes. So they snuck up and they looked inside, and inside one of the boxes was a cauldron. You know what you know what that means.
They were getting ready to decorate for Halloween.
I wish it had been the only thing better that it could have been would have been like there was a cookbook for witch's brew, or like I don't know, just the silliest thing. So
A jar labeled Eye of Newt.
A witch's hat. So this user believes that there is witchcraft happening there, obviously. They also said that when they first saw the house, they got some bad vibes, and believe, if not witchcraft, then some kind of satanic rituals happening there, but they don't think the Melon Heads live there. They're like, something bad's happening, but
some other creepy thing.
Some other thing we should definitely be afraid of. Another user named Alex claims to have encountered the Melon Heads while parked out on one of the back roads with his girlfriend at the time. And I mean, listen, I know everything that you write on the internet becomes true, but
you can't put it on the internet if it's not true.
It's okay. So according to Alex, he and his girlfriend were like parked out in a secluded area, and he got out.
I wonder what they were doing out there.
Probably, I think they were like debating, or I think they both maybe were on a school project together, and they were
yeah, they were probably discussing, like Charles Dickens or something.
Maybe they had a play they were in. They had to run lines.
Yeah,
that's a thing teenagers do, I think.
Isn't that where you go for Bible study and stuff?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of good Bible studies out in the woods.
Just two people, just teenagers.
Just
do one-on-one Bible studies.
They're called I was trying to think of a name of a Bible study I was actually in, because I was in a bunch that had weird names. Depth groups. Does that sound kind of weird? I was definitely in college in some depth groups. They were just getting deep with each other and God.
Balls deep?
Probably. It's for the Lord to know and us to only wonder. Okay, so they're out studying the Bible, and Alex had to pee. So he gets out of the car and goes to pee, as boys do. And suddenly his girlfriend starts honking the horn, and she turned the headlights on. And he thinks, he's like, I thought she was playing a prank, because sometimes she would do that. And I was like, honk the horn at you while you're peeing?
I probably totally would do that, honestly.
But like on more
than scare, I would do that to scare Sheldon, like startle him.
On more than one occasion, like enough that if you did it once, he'd be like, oh, it's just Katy doing her little shtick again.
I mean, maybe they just had like a playful relationship like that. Like they were always, teasing each other and playing little jokes and stuff. I don't know. I find myself constantly looking at the window here to make sure that Jarek's not going to pop up.
He's just being playful.
Mm-hmm.
I would be really mad if he did it when Critter was here, though. Like, for as much as we've been trying to get him to, like, settle and be chill, if Jarek were to, burst in here.
Why are you just staring at me like that?
Because he loves you.
Yeah, you love your mama? You better.
Okay, so this girlfriend is honking the horn and, being a little goofball. And and Alex turns around to head back, and he sees a small group of creatures. He describes them, quote, no taller than 3 feet, and had the biggest, most bulbous head I'd ever seen.
Now I'm totally thinking like Mars Attacks aliens.
Right? Okay, that is an interesting take that, like, I kind of started to think too. So he's like, okay, I started trying to get back to the car, and then this thing kind of started going, but he couldn't really run because it was like the head was disproportionately huge compared to the body, and so it was kind of like
weird bobblehead thing.
Weird, like I imagine maybe tipping over every couple steps. But it was coming at the car in a menacing way. It meant harm.
I mean, a menacing way, I think, still would probably look pretty funny, and I might have a hard time not laughing. You know how some people, like, try and give you, like, this death glare, and it just looks funny?
It looks silly. Yeah, it's...
You're talking about, like, 3-foot-tall, bobble-headed critters.
Also, if we do go with the take that they're aliens, how silly of these aliens... Okay, also, hold on. I just thought of this. Makes sense. Okay. Creatures that are of this earth, if you got a giant head and a little body, but you've been like that your whole life, eventually you're going to learn how to walk with your giant head. Okay, aliens, though, come and they're not used to the gravity situation here. This is starting to make more sense. Okay.
Have you seen the video of a little kid sitting in mom's lap, and she takes his arms and, like, puts him up by his head, and his head is so big that, like, his arms completely envelop, but, like, that's all kids, that's all babies. And you don't realize it until you hold your arms, like, you know, like you do the ballerina dancer thing where you put your fingers together way over your head and you're like, wow, there's a lot of space. But you take a small child and you try and do that and it's like their entire head.
Critter, quick, raise your hands.
I mean, yeah, it's the same thing. But that's why they develop the neck strength to hold the giant bobblehead.
He does have a strong neck. I'll give him that.
He is the king of tummy time.
Well, when I saw those pictures of him looking at his little cousin, I, for a second, thought he was crawling. And I was about to be like,
he's trying.
Slow down.
I tell him that every day. We did tummy time today, and he kept, like, kicking his feet around. His butt was up in the air. I was like, you are not old enough to crawl. Like, you can't even sit up on your own yet. He's getting close to that, we're not rolling over. We're not sitting up on our own. You're not allowed to crawl. And man, does he prefers to stand.
Oh.
Like, whenever you pick him up, if you're going to try and sit him down, he's like, no, I'm going to stand for a minute.
He's man, I think he's just, like, very advanced. You produced a very smart, advanced baby.
Time to take over the world.
Oh my gosh, that's what the Melon Heads look like.
Oh, I also just thought of Tolliver as Pinky, and Walker can be the brain. Pinky and the brain.
I was like, I'm picturing something when I think of these little creatures. It's the brain. Okay. I'll post a picture of that too. Okay, back to Alex. He's trying to get back to Bible study, and this is a quote. I could hear the melon head wheezing, and as it breathed, it made a kind of gurgling sound, which doesn't sound healthy. And Alex eventually gets back to the car and turns the high beam... Oh, wait, sorry.
Maybe
the girlfriend.
Their fluid had been shunted to their pleural cavity.
Oh, that's probably what it was.
The gurgling and wheezing.
But then they removed the shunt too soon.
Too much fluid there.
Yeah. The girlfriend turned the high beams on, and it scared them, or it stunned them enough that Alex could get back in the car, and they drove away. So we also have a user named Paul Intihar. Some people just put their full names on here. He says that the legend of the Melon Heads goes back to at least 1964, because that's when he heard about it. He attended Wycliffe High School, and he heard the story of a couple teenagers who were out driving on back roads one day, and they saw a melon head just staring at them. I was going to say much the way Critter is, but he just closed his eyes like a little angel.
I kept closing my eyes at him.
You're so smart. So they, much like that. Okay, so he's back to his, like...
Back to staring.
So they see this little thing staring at them, and so, of course, they follow it. It, like, runs off, and they follow it into the woods. And it leads them to an old farmhouse. And there's a middle-aged couple just sitting on the porch, I imagine in rocking chairs. And they are surrounded by several melon heads. And the husband, I imagine...
Come out with your hands up. We've got the place surrounded.
The husband just kindly explains to these teenagers who have chased his child home, like weird criminals, He explains that he had been a nuclear scientist during World War II, and due to all the radiation he had been exposed to, all of his children had been born as melon heads, or as kids with untreated hydrocephalus, ? I don't know. Which, that's actually, it's not, but it's sort of a little minor subplot in the newest Stranger Things.
I haven't seen it. I'm not up to date on Stranger Things.
It's really good. We just finished it. But it's not a spoiler. Hopper explains that he made Agent Orange, or he was like doing that product, whatever, during Vietnam, and then all of his buddies, like their kids, like their wives couldn't have kids, or they would miscarry, or their kids would come out like sickly or whatever, and then he had his little girl with his wife, and he thought he had gotten lucky, and then she got cancer and died, and so he's been living with that horrible guilt. Ugh, Hopper, love him. Okay, so this man is like, these are all of my children. And also, by the way, the government doesn't want anyone to know, so they paid me a lot of money to stay quiet. And they also bought me this nice piece of property so that we can have privacy. And it would be great if you guys could never come back here, and also never tell anyone about this. And the teenagers were like, absolutely, sure. And then they all went to a party that summer and
told everyone they could.
Everyone. So the story gets told at this party that I guess Paul is at. And someone there is like, oh, I know where that farmhouse is. And so they all pile into a car and drive out.
It's one thing to tell the story. Just leave them be.
I know. I mean, but I guess this is what teenagers do. Is like, whatever.
They're little punks.
Unless you listen to the show, in which case you're one of the cool kids. So they drive out to where this house is supposed to be, but they get stopped by the police, who lecture them a little too strongly about how there was definitely no such thing as melon heads, and they should definitely tell all of their friends that there's no such thing as melon heads, and you shouldn't go looking for them.
Reeks of conspiracy to me.
Yep. And then the cop did haul them all into the station, and they had to call their parents to come get them. So kudos to the cop on that one. It's like, you're not technically in trouble, but you are going to have to now call your dad and explain why he has to pick you up from the police station. Yeah. Presumably late at night.
I mean, protecting the peace of this poor family with...
I know. Just let Hopper and Winona Ryder have their little life in the woods, I assume. So there's another user named Tom McCaffrey. He says that the melon heads are all contained in one area by the government, and that area is enclosed by a 20-foot electric fence. He also claims that if you go to the area, you will be approached by a, quote, park ranger. But the park rangers are actually government agents, and you can tell because of their military haircuts and their really suspicious military-grade weapons that they carry. Also, Tom believes that the melon heads are, quote, descendants from the aliens that were transferred from Roswell and Hangar 18 near Dayton. Which, my only question for that is, if they are the descendants of the aliens from Roswell, does that mean that the U.S. government kidnapped aliens and then bred them somehow? Like, had some kind of breeding program?
Wouldn't put it past them.
I mean, yeah, but I just like the theory that they're just regular aliens, not weird inbred aliens. Okay, so there's only two more. An anonymous user grew up hearing a version of the legend that seemed to combine a couple different, like, pieces that we've already talked about. So according to them, Dr. Crow was actually Dr. Crowstein, which I'm just now realizing is problematic.
Anti-Semitic.
Yikes, I'm sorry. This doctor was a government scientist, and he and his wife lived in a secluded part of Kirtland. All of their children were born with mental and physical defects, possibly from his work with radiation. And his wife was like just a doting mother and just this kind-hearted, wonderful person. And she died suddenly and unexpectedly. And when she did, the children were so distraught that they killed the doctor and also each other. And that the legend of the Melon Heads is actually their ghosts that roam the area. This user also points out that the area off of Wisner Road, the house that's supposed to be the Melonhead house, is actually private property. And also it's illegal to park back there because they have done it and they've gotten in trouble. So don't.
We know from experience.
So don't. A strange park ranger with a military haircut and a grenade will tell you to leave.
Forgot about that part.
Another user who went by River Secrets.
Hey.
Just like you.
I'm exposing the secrets of the river.
Yes. Or are you keeping the secrets of the river?
I'm just keeping the river in general.
So River Secrets claims that as a teenager in the 70s, him or they and some friends would just go, I guess, looking for melon heads. And he admitted that they were usually drunk or high when they did this.
Yeah, it sounds like an appropriate time to be doing that activity.
And but he says that they always seem to have gaps of time that they couldn't account for, to which I would say,
again, they were drunk and or high.
Drugs and alcohol can do that to you. But they do say that there was one time they remember specifically they only had 1 or 2 beers and they still had the same experience of missing a chunk of time. They said when they kind of came to, they were quite a distance away and on foot when the sun was coming up. And they mentioned that although they never found or saw any melon heads, they did see a whole bunch of UFOs in that area, which seems like a bigger detail to just...
Yeah. Be like, oh, man, I went looking for melon heads and all I found were a bunch of UFOs.
All I saw was a UFO.
Man.
And I've seen several in this area where there's...
We've been out melon head hunting all over this area, and every time we come out, I feel like all we see are UFOs.
And we're always missing big chunks of time.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
I'm walking a little funny the next day.
I have this weird lump in my neck that feels kind of metallic, but is not.
And take me to the mother. Random things.
Yeah, so my theory is that River Secrets has just been abducted by aliens several times, and maybe that explains everything.
Yeah.
A couple people did mention that they were familiar with the house, the Melonhead house, and knew the people who actually lived there, and they were just normal people.
Imagine that.
And a couple users also swore that they had just seen the melon heads. They said they saw humanoid creatures with giant heads lurking in the shadows, usually on dark country roads. So, could it be anything else? An animal? Maybe?
Not a lot of bipedal animals.
Okay. I was gonna come back at you with something, but I've been watching a lot of this show on Discovery Plus called Paranormal Caught on Camera, and there's a lot of cryptids in that, and I'm like, well, what about... Oh no, wait, that was a Bigfoot, that was like a mini Bigfoot, a grass man,
a medium foot,
a medium foot, if you will, about a size 6 or 8, 6.5, 7. Can wear a 7 and wide, Okay.
A 7's not very big for a man's shoe. I wear an 8 in men's. or something.
Really?
Maybe it's a 7 in men's.
I wear a 6 in men's.
So maybe it's
which I think is an 8 in women's.
So maybe it is a 7.5 to 8 in men's that I wear. I have big feet.
You had big feet the last time I really looked at your feet.
And they're still big. They're not swollen, but...
So there's also a theory that says Dr. Crow performed secret/illegal abortions out of his home. And somehow, I'll let you draw your own lines for this, but it also said that he would also kill deformed babies that he birthed or that were born under his care. So I don't know if he was performing illegal abortions and also like sketchy labor and delivery stuff. I don't know. But he would kill babies and he would bury them near his cabin. And according to legend, the echoes of crying babies can now be heard or can be heard in his now abandoned cabin and in the area around it. Coincidentally, there is a bridge near this alleged place known as Crybaby Bridge.
Weird.
I almost did a episode on this too.
It just sounds like some really messed up take on eugenics.
Yeah.
Because I don't think in eugenics there was ever anything about necessarily like killing the imperfect, but breeding out the imperfections.
Yeah.
It was...
It does seem like the whole legend is kind of a fear-based...
Oh, take a drink. Eugenics is on the list.
Oh, man. I was like, what? Is there a spider?
We haven't done that one in a while.
It's true. Also, you could say that his cabin was
a murder cabin.
I'll finish that drink in a minute. So, I lost my train of thought.
Yes, sorry.
That
was my fault.
The legends do seem like they have like a see, this is what happens if we don't
a cautionary tale.
Yeah, where they're like, oh, inbreeding and like these birth defects, and they just pass on and they become these monsters if we don't control them. I will say the Crybaby Bridge, do you know that most states have a Crybaby Bridge in them?
Do we have one?
We do.
Where is it?
I forgot. It wasn't near here. I think it's like out in the mountains. There's probably one close to here. I don't know. I'll look up again. And so the legend for most of them is some kind of death of a baby or a grief-stricken woman who threw herself over the bridge or threw her baby over the bridge. And if you go either onto the middle of the bridge or if you park your car half on and half off and you say some kind of incantation,
like
then
Bloody Mary 3 times.
Yeah. Then
say cry baby 3 times.
Yeah. Listen, on that show, Paranormal Con on Camera, they had to say something about like Mary, have your baby or something. You have to say that like 3 times. But if you say the right words and then you're quiet, you should hear a baby crying in the distance.
Well, I pretty much just always hear a baby crying anyway because I've got the phantom crying. So like he'll be asleep in his swing or in his crib and I'm like down the hall in another room trying to do something. I'm like, he's asleep. I can go take care of chores. And then I hear crying and it's like, wait, no, what?
Well, speaking of cautionary tales, if you are on Crybaby Bridge and you hear a baby crying, or if you're anywhere by yourself and you hear a baby crying, it could be a serial killer trying to lure you to your death. Mm-hmm. So, okay, here's my closing points. Some takeaways, if you will. Melon Heads is a terrible name. And
yes.
I petition the people of Ohio and Michigan and Connecticut to change the name of the cryptid to something else. If they do exist, and if they are the descendants or related to severely abused children who suffered from untreated hydrocephalus, then I would also say that they should be treated with compassion, not fear. Maybe it's just aliens. I like that theory a lot. And maybe you could change the name to something alien-like. And then everyone go look up the Crybaby Bridge that is closest to you and tell us the story and or go try it for yourself.
Yeah.
But don't go towards the crying baby sound, to be clear.
Go with your Bible study partner.
Go with your Bible study partner and, do...
Flash the headlights.
Flash the headlights. Oh, gosh.
Be safe.
Do you want to do our socials?
Yeah, so when you do hopefully find your state's or your area's Crybaby Bridge and you want to send that info to us, you can contact us on Facebook or Instagram at The Tales We Tell Podcast. That's where we'll also have pictures from our episodes and other goodies. If you want to see pictures or contact us, but you don't do the social media thing, you can always check out our website, thetaleswetellpodcast.com. There is a contact us little email box on there. And if you want to support us, get yourself some sweet, sweet swag, you can go to redbubble.com and search The Tales We Tell. Or if you want to become a patron, go to patreon.com, search The Tales We Tell. We've got some bonus stuff up there sometimes. Also, you get stickers and love notes and early access to these episodes.
There's now 5 stickers that you will get in the mail from us.
Yeah. If
you become a patron. And if you're already a patron, you'll get 2. Because I already gave you 3 other ones. Yeah, thanks for... Listen, your child is now being a perfect angel. Mm-hmm. Just... I cannot say this enough. Just the cutest little melon head I've ever seen in my life.
Oh, so you know how Susan thought that Critter was actually his name?
Oh, yeah.
This weekend, Shelton and his family went to a celebration of life for a family member who unfortunately passed away recently. And I stayed at home with Critter, which turned out to be really good because he was sick. I just didn't know it. I just thought he was not feeling well. And the idea of just being around a lot of people during a serious time with a baby who was fussy was not ideal. But they all came back and they're like, by the way, everybody thinks Critter is his actual name. So, Susan, you are not alone.
Which, yeah, she did say.
And any other listeners, if you think Critter is actually his name, it's not, but you're not alone.
But it fits him. It suits him very well.
He is Critter.
He's a little critter.
The first person I ever called Critter was actually my father-in-law's wife's child, who is now going to be a freshman in college.
Oh, don't love that.
Yeah. So when I said something about Critter, when Hunter got to meet Walker, I was like...
I really thought you forgot his name for a second, because that's what Jarrett calls him. Hunter. Because he can't remember his name.
That's right.
I was like, Katy, no, his name. That's not his name.
My... my mother-in-law, stepmother-in-law, whatever you want to call it, my friend, her kid. I'm like, yeah, no, you're not Critter anymore. You're too old. You
aged out.
You've aged out of Critterdom. You've been replaced.
Although we have made it clear he's not ever going to age out of Critter.
No, he's not allowed to grow up.
I was going to say, you did sort of give me permission to call him Critter on his wedding day.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Great.
For sure.
Good.
Just means that the next one we're going to have to call, like, Nugget or something. Because every now and then I'll call him a little Nugget, but Critter is definitely him.
Yeah, he's so cute. Ugh.
Snoozing away.
Well, thanks, everyone. We will be back next week.
Hopefully just the 2 of us.
You know, it'll just, whatever. We play it by ear now. I mean, I was going to say, it was my fault that we didn't record early this time, so it's all good. All right. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.